Hello, today we're going to be talking about whether short-term or long-term rentals are more profitable. What is more profitable, a short-term rental or a long-term rental? Well, by the end of this video, I'm going to answer that question and I'm going to cut through the BS so you have a clear path to know which investment is right for you. So what is considered long-term rentals and what are their upsides and downsides? What is a short-term rental and what is its upsides and downsides? And how is profitability factored into these two investment strategies? And finally, how does your personal situation play a role in deciding which one's better? Well, if you're ready, let's go. So what is a long-term rental? Well, specifically, a long-term rental is where somebody is going to stay for a longer period of time, right? Typically longer than 12 months. 12, 24 months is typically your traditional long-term rental. Now, people might stay a lot longer than that, might even stay a little bit shorter than that, but typically a long-term rental is where people are going to put down some roots for at least 12 months or longer. So under that umbrella of long-term rentals, you have apartments, multifamily fall under that. You have residences, that if you own a residence and you rent it out for a long period of time. And what are the upsides of a long-term rental? Well, for one, you typically have one tenant you're dealing with that is staying there over a long period of time. And if you have the right tenant, sometimes they can be a very low maintenance tenant. I rented out a home that I owned in Utah and I had the same tenant in there for over 4 years, right? And I rarely heard from them, maybe once, twice, 3 times a year, but it was very low maintenance and the money came in like clockwork. So that is one huge upside to long-term rentals. Now, if you have multi-units under that long-term rental umbrella, you're going to have lots of different units. You're going to have lots of different tenants, but it is one tenant for each unit. They go about handling their business by themselves unless something crucial comes up where they need your help. So what are the downsides of long-term rentals? Well, typically you're going to receive less money, right, than you would if it was a short-term rental, because typically renting something long-term by one individual is going to be a smaller rate than if somebody's renting every other night, than if somebody's renting every week or every 3 or 4 days. And so you have lower rates, that's one thing. And where there's lots of doors, there might be lots of upkeep, right? Depending on how old or what challenges you have with that long-term rental. And ultimately, a long-term rental, depending if it's multi-unit apartments or something large like that, it could be more expensive. It could be a significant down payment where it's an investment property. It could be 20, 25, 30% down. And if it's something that you're purchasing that costs a lot of money, that could be burdensome or even difficult to do to move forward with. You know, when I first got started in real estate, I had a couple of early wins that I thought, man, this is fantastic. I'm going to buy an apartment complex. But finding a lender, we went and found a bank that was willing to loan on it, but they required quite a bit of money down. I had to go and get investors to come in with me on the project. And I remember thinking, that is a lot of money down, right? And the money came in, but it was a challenge to manage all of the tenants. And so I've seen what a long-term rental with lots of units looks like, but I've also owned short-term rentals that I can talk to and give you from my experience, which I've seen work better for me. So let's talk about short-term rentals really quick. What is a short-term rental? Well, it's nightly stays, right? Typically at least 2 nights or 3 nights, but anywhere between that 2 nights to maybe 7 to 10 nights is a short-term rental. So there's a lot more turnover every single month. You're getting a lot of different people, a vast demographic of individuals that are utilizing your place for short-term stays. And short-term rentals are typically in popular cities where people like to travel or vacation areas that people like to travel to. That's where you'll find your short-term rentals. They could be anything from a condo in a big city to something fun out in the middle of the forest that people will travel to, whether it's a tree house or something like that. It's something that people are attracted to as a destination to go and experience something that's enjoyable that they otherwise wouldn't by just renting a hotel. So nightly stays similar to a hotel, but it's more of an experience rather than just a stay. The other cool thing about short-term rental, it could be someplace that you can go and stay yourself. If you own an apartment complex, I doubt you'll ever go there and want to stay in one of the units yourself. Now, if you own a short-term rental or vacation rental and you owned it in a city and it's a condo, you want to visit that city, awesome, you've got a place to stay. Now, given you're going to be giving up some income that might come in from that night, but what an awesome thing to have as a short-term rental, a place that you can go visit yourself. Just this last summer, my family and I did just that. We have 3 short-term rentals in the southeastern part of the United States, and we made a road trip, and we stayed at Airbnbs in the places we didn't have a vacation rental. We rented an Airbnb, but the places we did, we stayed at our place in Orlando, in Blue Ridge, Georgia, and even in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. So it was a fun time to be able to experience the short-term rentals that we owned as a family, even though it was something that was making us money and allowed us to take the trip in the first place. Now, what is the upside of a short-term rental? Well, there's more money coming in. It's one unit and you're making more money on that unit than you would if it was a long-term rental. The amount of money you make on a long-term rental per unit is so much less than one unit, one door you can make from a short-term rental. And as I mentioned, it might be a place that you can visit as a family or as an individual. And the other benefit or upside is that you can sometimes get into these with less money down. Now, when I bought one of my first vacation rentals, I was able to buy it as a second home and come in with 10% down. Rather than 25, 30% as an investment property, I could come in with 10% down on the loan. And it was really a great thing for me because at the time I put in a lot less money and I knew that the revenue coming in from that short-term rental would cover the mortgage and all the expenses and be something that I was profiting from every single month. So the downside of a short-term rental is lots of turnover, right? You've got to have that thing cleaned every 2, 3, 7, 8 days, however long the stay is. You've got to have people in there. There's always a turnover and there's a lot of wear and tear. You have people coming in that are using it to its full capacity. They're on vacation, they're traveling. It's not their home. Chances are sometimes they beat it up. They're not going to stay there for a long period of time like a long-term rental, so they're not really trying to take care of it. Now you have a lot of guests that will, but for the most part, short-term rentals get a lot more wear and tear than a long-term rental. So what does your current situation tell you about which investment strategy is better? So if it's more time you have, a short-term rental could be great because if you're managing yourself, it requires a lot of time. You've got to constantly answer questions on Airbnb or Vrbo, right? So if you have a lot of time, short-term rentals could be a great thing for you. If you have less time, long-term rentals could be the best thing for you because that way you don't have to worry about a lot of things, a lot of questions being answered. Trust me, I've seen on short-term rentals on Airbnb, there are questions and requests that come up every single day on Airbnb or Vrbo for our short-term rentals. So it's definitely requires something. You have to have your phone on you all the time to be able to answer these questions. Whereas a long-term rental, you might not answer a question for 6, 7, 8 months. If you have multiple units, that might be different. However, if you're renting a residence, you're probably gonna have very few questions, very few challenges. It's not gonna take up near as much time. So how is profitability factored into these different strategies? So long-term rentals, short-term rentals, they're investments. You both look at them as a business, right? So with long-term rentals, you take total rents and you minus out the expenses. So you're gonna take out the management fee if there is one, and all operational costs, repairs, lawn care, snow removal if you're in that area that requires that, utilities like heat, gas, water, sewer, garbage, all those expenses go into operating a rental, right? So total rents minus all the expenses, minus the mortgage, right? And it spits out hopefully a profit for you, right? That's the goal. And short-term rentals are looked at the exact same way. And obviously, where you have total rents and you're minusing out the expenses, mortgage payments play a huge role in that. So interest rates can really be significant depending on what interest rate you bought the property at. So for a lot of my short-term rentals, I bought 2 or 3 years ago at the optimal time when interest rates are low. And so my mortgage payment isn't near what it would have been had I bought them 4, 5, 6 months ago with interest rates pushing 7, 8%. It almost took a whole group of people out of the buying market for short-term rentals. And with short-term rentals, I've put together a calculator that really factors in the success, and I'll just give those details to you right now. But this is how I look at it. When I'm looking to buy a short-term rental, if annual rents are 10% of the purchase price, it's a decent deal, right? If annual rents are 15% of purchase price, it's a good deal. If annual rents are 20% of purchase price, it's a do not pass up deal. And if it's higher than that, you should jump on it right away. We had one of these scenarios with our vacation home in Florida, right by Disney. We were able to purchase that home for $569,000, and annual rents the first year was $145,000. It was a killer deal for our family when we purchased that vacation rental there. So it can be a great thing, but that is the basic rule of thumb when looking just as a snapshot picture whether you should invest in the short-term rental or not. So which one is more profitable, right? They both have pros and cons. But here's my take. I personally like short-term rentals. I have a little bit of time and even some partners on some deals that are able to answer some of those questions that pop up. But here's a scenario. When I first bought my apartment complex, the first one that I owned, I remember thinking like, oh my goodness, we paid X amount of dollars for it. But it's pulling in $20,000 to $23,000 a month. That's really good, right? And the cost of that apartment complex was $2 million, right? But it was servicing the loan. It was paying for everything. It was a good deal at the time. Check back now, we bought a vacation rental close to Yellowstone, our best month ever, and we bought that for just over $1 million. Our best month ever was $39,000 that came in from one summer up there close to Yellowstone. So personally for me, the upside the greater profitability, if you find the right deal, is in short-term rentals. Now that's my experience. That's what I've seen. That's what I like. But I'd be interested in hearing what you say. If you have something different, if you believe long-term rentals are better, let me know. Let's engage in a dialogue. And as always, just for stopping and watching the video, I've got a free gift for you. It's aaronsfreetraining.com. It is that short-term rental calculator I talked about where you put in the numbers, all the expenses, and it spits out for you whether it's a good deal or not. And once again, that's a free gift just for stopping and watching. I appreciate you being here. Have an awesome day.